Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Stitch Sessions. In this week's tutorial, we are going to be working on a hat project, and it's perfect for fall going into winter. And you may notice that there is some wonderful texture on this hat. Remember a while ago when we worked on the coffee cozy, and I told you guys that we were really practicing our post stitches? Well, it was for an upcoming tutorial, and this is it. So in this project, we're going to work on crochet cables, and it creates this really pretty braided-like effect. It looks super complicated, I know. I would say it is more of an intermediate level project, but just take your time and be patient, and you know your double crochet stitches. You will be introduced to triple crochets if you haven't done some already. But if you take your time, you should be able to do this no problem at all. And I just love the effect it creates. And it really, really looks fancy. So perfect for gift giving or making for yourself. And this is a one skein project, so it's perfect for buying one ball of yarn and knowing that it's pretty much going to be enough. You can make this for a gentleman, a lady, or a child, and I'm going to talk all about how you can size your hat to whoever you're making it for. So without further ado, let's get into the materials and then let's get started stitching up our cabled hat. Okay, so here are the materials we're going to use for this project. The yarn I'm going to use is the Lion Brand's Heartland yarn, and if you saw the Black Cat Square project, you know that I made the kitty cat out of this color. And it comes in a 152 gram ball, and it contains 251 yards or 230 meters. Should be plenty for a full hat. Okay, it is 100% acrylic. And the hook size they're calling for is a 6mm hook, but I'm going to be using a 5.5mm hook for this project, and which is also known as an I or a size 9. Now, the reason why I'm going down a hook size is this yarn is, it's beautiful to work with actually. But it's very relaxed, and if I use the 6mm hook, I know that my stitches are going to be sitting probably more relaxed than I would like for a hat. I think I would like the stitches to sit a little closer together. In fact, I have been known to use a 5mm hook, a full hook size down when using this yarn. So, you know, totally up to you. You can just go with the recommendation. I am using a 5.5. And by the way, if you're curious about the color, this one's called Canyonlands. And I have worked with this yarn before. I love it. So it's actually really beautiful for scarves as well because the drape is just gorgeous. So this hat that we worked on, I used the Impeccable yarn, and it just has a little bit more of a, I don't know, I call it a sturdiness. I don't know how else to call it. But it is also considered a medium weight 4, but it's just got a bit of a, it's not as soft as this one, I find. So, and anyway, I wanted to use a lighter color because it would show up better on camera. So, okay, so we've got our yarn, we've got our hook, scissors, darning needle as always. You're also going to need a little piece of paper and a pen, and you do need a measuring tape, and for the life of me, I don't know where I put mine right now. Okay, so once you've got all these materials together, then you're ready to begin. Okay, before you even start stitching, what you need to do is take a measurement, actually just one measurement you're going to need, and that is the circumference around the person's head. Okay, so that's the measurement going all the way around. Now, how you take the measurement is really important, and you're going to see my beautiful artwork here. So this is a head. Oh God, that's terrible. And this is the ear. Okay, but anyway, I think you get the gist. Wow, that's a really thin neck. Okay, there we go. So a lot of times people make the boo-boo and they measure the circumference this way. What you actually want to do is you want to measure your head circumference this way. Because remember, that is how the hat is going to sit, okay? It doesn't sit this way. it's going to sit this way. And as you can see, you've got a little bit more length here. So basically from the nape of the neck, crossing around the ears and across the forehead and around. So that is the measurement that you want for your head. Okay. Now I'm making mine for a gentleman, and I have taken the head measurement, which is 23 inches. Okay. And which comes out to about 58.5 centimeters. What I would recommend is whatever your measurement, take a full inch away. Because remember, there's going to be a lot of stretch in your garment, okay? So I'm basing mine on 22 inches, which is going to give me approximately 57 centimeters, I believe, okay? So this is important when we start creating our hat, because we are going to start with the brim, and the brim is going to go all the way around. The other measurement you're going to need, so this is the circumference, okay? And the other measurement you're going to need is your hat depth. And that's basically the length from your brim all the way to the crown of the head. And in fact, you probably want a little extra there. So I know for my gentleman, making this hat for my daddy, it's going to be about 9 or 9.5 inches. Okay, and that works out to approximately 23 to 24 centimeters. So these are the two main measurements you're going to need. You really won't need this one till much later on, but the main one you want to focus on right now is your circumference. So I know for me, I need to remember 22 inches. So once you have your measurement, now you're ready to begin. Okay, so we are going to create our hat from the brim and work our way up to the crown of the head. Okay, so the first thing we're going to work on is creating this brim here. And so we're going to work widthwise, and we're going to create a band that's going to give us our 22 inches, in my case 22 inches. Again, take your measurements. So you want to take your yarn, and you want to begin with a slip knot, and place that slip knot on your hook. Then you are going to chain 10 to begin. And there's my 10th stitch. Okay, so just a really short little chain there. This is the height of our brim. If you want a thicker brim so that you can fold it over, I would maybe double this length, but I'm pretty happy with it as is. Now into the second chain from the hook, you're going to place a single crochet stitch. So we count 1 and 2. Remember, the loop on the hook never counts. So we insert our hook and single crochet, just like that. And then we continue to place 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way to the end of your chain. Okay, just like that. So keep doing that all the way to the end, and you will end up having 9 stitches in total. Okay, so I have completed my first row, and I have 9 stitches in total, 1 single crochet into each stitch, and you can see my work looks like that. So we're going to go on to row 2, and row 2 is going to be the repeat to create the band. So really nice and easy. At the end of every row, you will always chain 1, turn your work, and you want to turn your work so that you can see the tops of your stitches. You see those V's there? So the loops closest to you are the front, and the loops furthest away are the back. We are going to be working into the back loops. So normally you would go directly into the full stitch there. See that? You can see both loops. But this time we're going to go into the back loop. Now, really important here for this one, we are going to work directly right away into the very first stitch. So after you've chained 1, be careful not to tighten that, because it'll really crunch your work down. So keep it nice and relaxed. And into the very first stitch into the back loop, just want to nestle that hook in there and you're going to pull up a loop and single crochet. Just like that, okay? Then you do the same thing into the next stitch, which is right there, back loop. And single crochet. And I'll do one more. Right there. Okay, and what that does is it allows the front loops to be pushed forward. Okay, and you're going to keep doing that into every stitch all the way down to the end of your row, and you will still have 9 stitches in total. Okay, so stitch count is important here to keep consistency in your work. I just have a couple more stitches here. Okay, this is the 8th. And now right here, this is the chain 1 where we turned. So it's easy sometimes to miss that. So make sure that you don't miss that very last stitch. If you're ever unsure, just go backwards and count up your stitches. If you've only got 8, then you know you missed one. Okay, so that is row 2. So now you can really see that it creates a little bit of a ridge there. And that is what you're going to do for rows and rows and rows to create your band. So one more time, when you come to the end, you chain 1, you turn your work, and then right away into that very first stitch, back loops only, you place a single crochet. And again, single crochet. I think you get the gist. And so we are creating this effect here. You can see that on this hat here. And that's all you're going to do. You're going to repeat this for rows and rows and rows and rows and rows until you get your head circumference. So for me, that's going to be 22 inches. Remember when I said you want to take an inch away? See how this stretches? Well, if you have the exact measurement and you have stretch, it gets really loose on the head. I learned that years ago when I made a hat for my brother, and he said he had to roll it over like 4 times by the end of the winter because it stretched out so much. So always best to gauge by keeping your hat snug, because it will stretch, and then of course through wash and wear and all that kind of stuff. You want it to be able to move with wear. Okay, so you're pretty much set. Repeat row 2 for 10,000 rows, however many rows you need, and I'll meet up with you once you've finished the length of your head circumference. Okay, so I've finished my band, and you can see it creates a really nice stretch there. Now, one thing that's important to know at this point in time, once you have your measurement, you want it to measure that length that we were talking about, the circumference, without having to stretch it. See how much it stretches? So that's why I said originally to take at least an inch off of your measurement. Now, the other thing that's really important to know is that in order to create our cables, we need to make sure that we have stitches in multiples of 12. So to create the actual cable, the little braided effect, we need 9 stitches, and then we will have 3 stitches as a spacer in between each cable. So that gives us a total of 12 stitches to create each section. So for me, what I did is I made sure that the number of rows I have will give me a count that's done in multiples of 12. So my band measured 22 inches like I was hoping, but I had about 63 rows. Now 63 is not really a great number if you divide it by 12. So I took out the 3 rows because again, I'm going to have stretch, so I'm not too worried about going less than 22 inches. So I have 60 rows altogether. Now, you're wondering, why are you talking in rows if we're talking in stitches? Because what's going to happen is we are now going to close off our band. So that's going to be the opening. And we're now going to work in the round, and that is going to be around the sides of those rows, and that's going to give us a new set of stitches. Each stitch is going to go into the side of each row. Hopefully that makes sense. So I have 60 rows. Let's move on. Okay, so what we're gonna do is the side that you just finished, you wanna take your other side and butt it up next to each other so that the edges of the stitches are there. And this will work out perfectly, whatever your row count is. If you can try and end on an even number, this will work out great, because that way, when we seam up, we can just work right over your tail and you don't have to worry about weaving it in. At the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. You can always seam it up after, but that's just kind of one of the things I like to do. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, with my hook, with the loop on the hook, I'm just gonna keep it there. I'm gonna find the very first stitch here. Now this is my original foundation chain row. So there's gonna be a turning chain in there. So that first stitch is right there. So I'm gonna insert my hook into the stitch. And now back where I just came out of, what I wanna do is I want to find the back loop. So you can see where that's coming out there? I'm going to go back into that stitch and go into the back loop only. And so I'm going to continue that pattern, that ribbed pattern, even though we're seaming up our side. So I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull that loop through all 3 of these spots here, just like that. So now it's secured. And that's what I'm going to do all the way down. So I'm going to find my next stitch, which is right there. I'm going to insert, and then I'm going to find the corresponding stitch, which is this one, but I'm going to go into the back loop and not the full stitch, okay? And then I just pull that through all 3 loops. And again, the next stitch right there, and then the back panel is the back loop only. And you'll do that all the way down. Whoops, careful not to split your yarn, until you get to the edge. So you should have the same number of stitches. So you're going to do that all the way down to the end of your row. Okay, so I just finished slip stitching up the end there, and you can see it pretty much just blends right in. What I do like to do a lot of the times though, see how it's a little bit thicker here? I just like to turn it right side out. So for me, this is going to be my right side, and that is where we worked into the back loops. And it really pretty much just disappears there. So next, the only thing is I just have to make sure that I feed my yarn through here. There we go. So now what we need to do is we need to create some stitches around the top here so we can work into. So at the moment, we're going to be working into the sides of rows, okay? So I always like to do a round of single crochets. So that's what we're going to do, just to kind of give us a nice smooth working edge to work with. And I'm just going to tuck that down there, and I'm going to work over my tail as I go. If you like to weave your ends in later, just push that tail down and ignore it. So now that I'm working along the side here, we want to chain 1. And right there where we slip stitch, we're going to go right back in there and place a single crochet. Okay. And so here you can see you've got ridges and you've got dips, ridges and dips. So it should be a little bit easier to see where you need to go. So this slip stitch here was done in a ridge row, I like to call it. So now I'm going to go into the dip. So I'm going to insert my hook into that little dip area there, the dip, and then pull up a loop and single crochet. Now the next one is a ridge row. So I am going to go, see with that loop there? That's the top, that's the end of the ridge row. So I'll single crochet there. Next is a dip. So I insert there and single crochet. And that's pretty much it all the way around. Okay, so now my ridge row is here, and that's the loop that belongs to it. And I'll single crochet. okay? So that will then create a nice smooth edge where we'll have proper stitches to work into. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so you're going to do that all the way around until you come back to that very first single crochet that we made, and you'll slip stitch to join. Remember, we had 60 rows, so you should have 60 stitches. This is really important because this will create the base of our work so that we can then begin creating our cables. So go ahead and finish round 1, and I'll meet you back here in a bit. Okay, so I've come around. I have 60 stitches, okay? And now I'm going to slip stitch to join. I wanted to just meet up with you here because it's very easy to go into that stitch thinking it's a stitch, but it is not. That's where we came out of to slip stitch. So the stitch we want to go into is right there. So we're just going to insert our hook. Whoops. And slip stitch to join round 1, okay? And don't worry if you feel like, oh, the hat seems to be getting smaller. Look at all this stretch, okay? So don't panic. All right, so now we're gonna go on to round 2. And round 2 is still not really the beginning of our cables, but it's setting up an establishing round. So it's kind of like the base from which you're gonna work your cables. So what we wanna do is we want to chain 1, okay? Now we are going to work double crochets in this round, but I'm going to start my first double crochet a little bit differently than I normally do. Most of the time I will chain 3, okay? But sometimes when I'm doing hats, I want this seam to sit a little bit more snugly. So I'll chain 1, I'll go back into that same stitch, and I'm going to single crochet. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into that first loop there from the single crochet, the leg there, and I'll pull up a loop just like that. See how I'm getting a little bit of height? I like to then do another chain 1. I still have 2 loops on the hook, and then I yarn over and pull through both of them. So as you can see, it's created the height that I need. I like to call this a self-contained double crochet. There's many other techniques on how to do the double crochet without the chain 3, and this is my kind of favorite way to do it. So that's going to count as a double crochet, and that's simply what we're going to do into each stitch all the way around, and that is placing your hook and placing 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way around. So again, round 2, still pretty easy, nice and straightforward. I know you're getting excited about taking on these cables. Don't worry, we're getting there. Okay, so, okay, 1 double crochet into each stitch. Okay, so I finished round 2. I still have 60 stitches, and they're all double crochets. Now, round 3 is where we are going to begin our pattern repeat. So it takes 4 rows to create our cable. So when we say it's a 4-row repeat, that's what we mean. So it's going to take 4 rows to start creating that braided effect, and then we keep repeating those same 4 rows over and over again. So I'll make sure to leave timestamps down below just so that you have a reference point if you need to go back at any point in time. So technically we are about to begin row 3. So that means row 3, 4, 5, and 6 are going to be the rows that we keep repeating over and over again. So for row 3, we want to begin, again, chain 1, insert back into that same stitch. We're going to single crochet. So this is how we're going to do the start of every round, no matter which round you're on. Okay, so we start with that single crochet. We then find that left leg there of the single crochet. We insert and pull up a loop. Then we yarn over and chain from that first loop. And now we yarn over and pull through 2. Okay. And now what we're going to do is into the next 2 stitches, we're just simply going to place a double crochet. Okay, so whenever we do 3 regular double crochets, that's to create a space between our cable pattern. Okay, now here's where things are going to get interesting. What we're going to do is we're going to skip the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. And we are actually going to work not into the next stitch, but around the post. Okay, and we are going to use triple crochet stitches, also known as front post triple crochets. So that means we're going to yarn over 2 times. And then instead of the stitch, we are going to place our hook in between and around the back. This pushes the post to the front, which is why we call it a front post. Then you yarn over, pull through. You've got 4 loops on your hook, and you're now going to resolve it like you would a regular triple crochet. You would yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, pull through the second 2 loops, and pull through the third 2 loops. So that's going to leave a bit of a gap there. That's okay. Do not worry. We're going to do this 2 more times into each of the next 2 stitches. So yarn over twice, work around the post, and resolve a triple crochet. Pull through 2, pull through the next 2, and pull through the next 2. Okay, so they're both going to lean, and the same thing for the third one. So once, twice, and 3 times. You want to make sure don't stitch too tightly because we want to allow these stitches to lean. Now this is where the real fun is going to begin. We have to go back to those skip stitches and work back into them. So we're going to use triple crochets. You're going to yarn over twice, and now you're going to come back to the very first one you skipped, and you're going to work a front post around there. So it can feel a little tricky, but just take your time. So I found my post, and so I'm going to insert my hook. So you're going to see that your work is going to pull a little bit. That's okay. Insert. Okay, keep it somewhat relaxed. Now be careful here that you don't accidentally hook other loops and you work that triple crochet. So see, now that they're kind of crisscrossing each other already. We need to do that again into the other 2 stitches that we skipped. So don't be afraid to kind of pull your work apart so you can see where they are. Those are the next 2 stitches. So yarn over twice and work a front post triple crochet. Okay, and then we have 1 more. And this is where you're going to have to pull your work apart a little bit. Oh, see, that one's already been worked, so you want to be careful. There we go. That's the one. So this part right here is probably, if you're really new to cables, where it just might take you a little bit more patience. You have to take your time. There's no fast way around this. But I promise you, once you get the hang of it, it's going to be pretty easy to repeat. Okay, so this is the effect here. So you've got what looks like this little jimble jamble of stitches. So we've got the stitches we just did that are starting to lean to the left, and the first ones we did right behind there are the ones leaning to the back. So let me just grab this one here. So see how these kind of cross over? This is the part that we're creating right now, that first little part of our braid. Okay. Now the next 3 stitches are going to be front post double crochet stitches. So these next 3 are just kind of balancing out the top line here. So make sure not to work around the post that's already been worked. So you're only going to yarn over once, insert, and just do a regular front post double crochet. So there's the second one, and there's the third one. Okay, so this is the pattern for round 3. Okay, so you're going to do 3 regular double crochets into the stitches. You will then skip 3 stitches and work 3 front post triple crochets. There they are in the back there. Then you will come back and work 3 front post triple crochets in the stitches you missed. Then in the next 3 stitches, you will just work 3 regular front post double crochet stitches. This gives you your first 12 stitches completed. Okay, so that is the 12 stitch repeat, I like to call it. So then you will begin again, do the next 12, do the next 12, and do the next 12, etc. So you should end up doing this 5 sets if you have 60 stitches like I do. So I'm just going to quickly I'm just going to take you through the next 3 here real quick. So we would now go back to the first 3, which means we're just going to work into the regular stitch, place a double crochet into each of the next 3. Okay, you might not be able to tell right now, but with subsequent rounds, the front post stitches are really going to pop. And then you would go again, skip 3, 1, 2, and 3, and into the following one, you do that front post triple crochet. Okay, and then you do 2 more. Okay, once you've done the 3, then you come back. This is the trickiest part right now. Yarn over, come back to that first post you skipped. Okay, keep it really very relaxed and work that triple crochet. This part here is where you need to take your time. If you rush through it, it's just going to be a big mumble jumble here. Okay, so again, pull your work apart. Whoops, need to yarn over again. And the next post is right there. And then one more. There it is there. So you're really going to handle your stitches quite a bit in this project because you've got to move some of them out of the way in order to get to the next ones. Okay, and we've done that crisscross again. And now into the next 3 stitches, you just do regular front post double crochets. So second one, and the third one. Okay, we've done our second set of 12 stitches. All right, guys, repeat that all the way around. You still want to have 60 stitches at the end of round 3. Okay, I came to the end of round 3, just finished with the last set of 3 front post double crochets, and now I'm going to slip stitch to join to the top of that very first stitch. As always, if you're ever uncertain, go backwards and count to make sure you have 60 stitches. So my hat is looking something like this, which kind of doesn't look like anything yet. It just looks like there's a bit of kind of mishmash here. It's getting there though. Okay, so round 4 is going to begin by chaining 1 and then placing a half double crochet back into that same stitch. So yarn over, you have 3 loops and pull through all 3. We're going to do that into each of the next 3 stitches. And you may be wondering, how come we are changing the height of our stitch? And that's because for the rest of the stitch repeat, we're going to do all front post stitches. And front post stitches tend to dip down a bit. So we want to make sure that the height of our row remains the same. So we've got a half double crochet stitch, and then our double crochet is going to be a front post. So it's actually going to dip down a wee bit. So that's what's going to happen next. So here's where things might get a little tricky. You see how you have this crisscross effect here? What you want to do is make sure that you just stretch that so you can actually see that your row is quite organized and consistent. It just looks a bit unorganized from here. So we want to find the next 3 stitches, which are the ones behind, okay? So the ones that are pointing towards your hook. Now notice these stitches are going away from the hook. So you want to kind of pull your work apart here to find them. There they are. And you want to yarn over and do a front post double crochet into around each of those stitches. So there's the first one. I have the next one. And don't be afraid to push these front ones over. This part right here is actually what helps to accentuate the braided effect because we are extending our posts to come over. So front post, double crochet. See that? Now you can really see it coming up from behind. There you go, just like that. And don't worry about these little gaps. They will settle in as you work along. Now what you're going to do is front post around these next 3 here. So you'd work a front post double crochet around that one. And then around the next one. And then we have one more right there. Okay, there you are. Now you can really see that that braid is starting to form. And then into the next 3, we just continue doing front post, double crochet stitches. So round 4 is all front post double crochet stitches in every post except for those that are not posted stitches. And those would be, remember how we always have the 3 regular double crochets that creates a separator? Those are the regular stitches. Into those, you're just going to place a half double crochet into each of those. So this way it continues the separator between the cables, but it also levels out the top of our round. And there you have it. So we've gone through the first 12 stitches and on to the next round. So that's it. Again, you may still not be able to see it, the effect too well, but I can already start to see that right there taking shape and I love it. So continue all the way around till the end of round 4. You should still have 60 stitches. Okay, so I have completed round 4, and now you can really see the cables are starting to really form and take shape. So now we're going to move on to round 5, which is the 3rd round of our 4-round repeat. And we begin again with our double crochets at the beginning. So I chain 1, and I create my first self-contained double crochet. And then 2 more doubles. And now we're back into our cable section here. So in round 3, we skipped the first 3 stitches and did our triple crochet. And then we came back, and then at the end we did just regular front post double crochets. So we're flipping that for this round. We're going to start off by doing 3 front post double crochets to begin. So again, that's going to require us to kind of pull our stitches a little bit. And you're going to place a front post double crochet into the first, then into the second, and now into the third. Okay, and now we're going to do our crisscross. So we will skip the next 3 stitches and front post triple crochet into the next 3. So essentially, if you remember what we did in round 3, we are reversing the order of when we skip those 3 stitches. Okay, so, and here is my last front post, triple crochet. Okay, see how we have that gap? Now we come back. Now it's a little easier because you can see where the posts are coming through. So yarn over twice and I come back. Now I'm just going to pick up these posts that I left behind. So there's 1. And then we go back and get the second one. So you can see how long these triple crochets are in length, which is great for twisting around other posts. Okay, there you are. And then we're back to our regular double crochets. So we begin again. 3 double crochets into the stitches. Whoops. 3 double crochets into the stitches. Then we do 3 front post double crochets into each, around each post here. And there's that third one there. Don't be afraid to pull apart your work. I know I've said this a million times, but I can't stress that enough. Don't be afraid to pull apart your work. Okay, and now we're going to skip 3 stitches and front post triple into the next 3. So second one. A lot of wrapping in this project, that's for sure. Wrapping your yarn around several times. Okay, and now we're going to come back and pick up those 3 posts we skipped. And that's pretty much the pattern for round 5. And there you have it. And then we go back into our regular double crochet. So that is the repeat for round 5, and we'll almost be finished our pattern repeat. Okay, so remember for round 5, whoops, you're going to start with 3 regular double crochets. So let me come back here so you can see. 3 regular double crochets, 3 front post double crochets, then we skip 3 and front post triple, then come back and front post triple. 3 regular, so you can see there, 3 regular double crochets, 3 front post double crochets, skip 3, front post triple, front post triple. Whoo-wee, this is why those timestamps are really going to come in handy, guys. So pause that video and go ahead and finish round number 5. Okay, so now we're going to go into the last round of our repeat. So this is round number 6, and it's actually going to be the exact same thing we did in round number 4. So we're going to chain 1, and we're going to place a half double crochet back into that stitch, and then a half double crochet into the next 2 stitches. Okay, so this is going to be the round where we place front post stitches all the way around, except for those 3 regular double crochets. Okay, so 3 half doubles, and now what we're going to do is front post double crochets. So you should kind of remember this a little bit from round 4. And that's basically what's going to help pull these cables out from behind each other. So you can see these posts are now snaking up through there. So that's where you're going to start see seeing that braided effect take place. And that's it. So then you're going to push aside the ones that are hidden and pull them up. So remember, these are front post double crochets, not triples. And you're going to do that all the way around. Okay, and get right in there. Front post, and then we come and get these ones here. And they're, once you get going, the cables start becoming much easier to see and find. And there's another one there as well. And now we've got our regular double crochets. So in this round, we're placing half double crochets directly into the stitch. And that's the only time we work into the stitch as opposed to the post. Okay, and then we're back to working front posts all the way around. And there you have it. So that is round 6. Okay, so you're going to want to do that all the way around to complete your round. Okay, so I'm at the end of round 6. I've just finished my last post stitch, and now I'm just going to slip stitch to join my 6th round here. Just like that. And so now I've completed the 4 rounds that we will continue to repeat for this pattern. So kind of have to look at it from the side there. You can really see how they're pushing forward and how the braided effect is going to start to take place. So now you've got all the information that you need to build the height of your hat. So I repeated my pattern a total of 4 times. So that means I have 16 rounds of this pattern. So those 16 rounds don't count the initial single crochet round or the double crochet round. So it's 16 rounds after that. So I repeated my pattern 4 times. This will depend on the depth of the hat that you're making. Again, mine was about 9 to 9.5 inches. So you just want to keep repeating the pattern until you get the hat depth that you need. Now, one thing you'll notice, especially when we're doing things like cables and just when you're doing repetitive, slightly medium size or larger projects, that you may feel like your work is shrinking. Like this hat for an adult, when you first look at it, kind of looks like it might not fit. But in reality, what happens is when you're working with post stitches, they tend to kind of bunch in a little bit, and you naturally will start to not tighten, but just be a little bit less lax as you continue to crochet. So I would, after each round, just give it a little stretch. As you can see, there's lots of stretch there, so don't worry about it being too tight. We'd rather the hat be snug than be, have their head swimming around in there. So just give it a little bit of a stretch after every round, and you should be good to go. Okay, so if you need to reference anything, remember, check the timestamps down below. If you need to kind of review what happened in round 3, 4, 5, or 6, you can just reference there and keep repeating. I'm going to go ahead and repeat my pattern 4 more times to give me a total of those 16 rounds. Then I'll meet back up with you when we are just about ready to finish off our hat. And here we have my hat, and I love how this color came out. Now, it is important to note, I had said that I was going to do 16 rounds, which is what I did for this hat. Now, this is the funny thing about yarn weight. There is a little bit of give within that weight. Both of these yarns are a medium weight 4, but I may have mentioned that the Impeccable just had a little bit more of a thickness to it. The Lion brand yarn, also a medium weight 4, but it had a bit more softness and stretch to it. So therefore, I actually needed more rounds, okay? So I ended up doing a total of 24 rounds. That does include those first establishing rounds. So I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit of this cable braided effect. Isn't that pretty? Whereas in this hat, I only basically had 3, and then I cinched it at the top. But if you put them side by side, you see, they are going to come out to have the same height. So you just need to kind of pay attention and gauge things like that, all right? So I am now ready to cinch up my top. But what I'm going to do before we do that is I'm just going to do one final round here of single crochets. And the reason why I'm doing that is it's going to make it a little easier to cinch in the top. So I just want to chain one. I'm going to go back into that same stitch and I'm going to single crochet. And that's just what I'm going to do all the way around. And when I get to the end, I'm going to slip stitch to join at the top. And I'm going to leave a nice long tail, like about 12 to 16 inches, and then I'll snip off my yarn, okay? So go ahead and finish the last round with a single crochet. See how the cable is here? There's a gap. That's why the single crochet round is really good. It just helps to even out that final round. Okay, and here I am, my last stitch I just created. Now I'm slip stitching to join, chaining one, and just going to gauge it there like that. Snip off my yarn, and we're ready to just about finish our hat. There we go. Okay. And by the way, always make sure, of course, to try it on and make sure that it does cover the crown of your head. So if when you have it on yourself or the person you're making it for, you can cinch it in while it's on your head and it covers your head, then you know you've got a great height. Just in case that, you know, the 9 inches or 9.5 inches doesn't work for you, or you have an abnormally large head, whatever the case may be, trying on is always the best bet. Okay, so this is where you're going to want to bring your darning needle in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my hat inside out. Okay. And then I'm going to thread my darning needle. And this part's going to be really straightforward. Okay, so where we have our end here, you want to try and fold your hat so that it's kind of sitting somewhere in the middle. Because how I'm going to cinch the top is, well, you can do this one of two ways. You could actually weave in and out, and in and out with every stitch, which is nice and easy to do. It's pretty straightforward, okay? And then once you've gone all the way around, all you're going to do is you're going to cinch it in, right? And you'll see I've done a lot of projects like this. However, for this one, I just feel like there's going to be a lot of bulk at the top, and cinching it in may agitate the yarn. And I also want to make sure my yarn doesn't break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cinch it in kind of the crossways method, I call it. So I'm going to pick up stitches across the way of the opening. So like I said, you folded it down so it's relatively in the center, yeah? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the corresponding spot. Make sure that's centered. Okay, so there's my tail, and right across the way, I'm just going to insert my hook and sew that together. Okay, there we go. So now we've got a nice closed off center. Do that a couple of times. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half the other way. So now you've got two sections. See how this is in the center? So you want to fold it this way. And now you want to pinch in the two centers from here. And I find that this is a nice, easy way of creating that, just that perfect bunched in look without putting a lot of stress on that piece of yarn that you're using to do it. So I'm going to go in through there. Then I'm going to find my center piece, which is right there. And then I'm going to go in through the corresponding stitch on the other side. Okay, so when I do that, you should see that you've got fairly even sections. It's not going to be perfect. Like this one looks a little bit longer, but it's just going to work out fine. So then I go back in again a second time, at least twice. Okay, now I've got 4 sections here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each section and pinch them in. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to pinch them in. So I'm going to try and fold them in half each time. So I have that. And then again, always picking up back into the center. And that gives the same effect as that cinched in look. So I'm going to go in again one more time. And I always like to work crossways when I do these kind of things. So I just did this corner here. So instead of going to the one beside it, I'm going to go to the one across the way. So same thing. I'm going to fold it down so that I can pinch the center in and always meet back up with the center. Whoa, don't pick up that loop. The center of my hat. And I just find it gives it a really nice look. And also, if you decide to add a pom-pom or something at the top, this just kind of adds to the look of it. I am not going to be adding a pom-pom. Like I said, I'm making these hats for my dad, and he's just not a pom-pom kind of guy. So that's pretty much it, okay? Now I'm going to come back to these 2 sides and do the same. So I'll pinch that in and pinch that in. And then what I'll do is I'll just go around the edges and just give it a quick little sew. And then I'll turn my hat right side out and it's ready for wear, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and finish sewing in my top. And I'll meet you back here in a second for the final reveal. Okay, here we go. Turning my hat right side out. And now you can see the top there. Actually, I love that. You can see where the cables kind of meet in with each other. That's another reason why I want to do the crossways method. Love that. And if you want to add a pom-pom, you can. And there we have our cabled hat. So I've got it in this beautiful kind of amber color as well as the gray, charcoal gray. And my dad is good to go for this fall and winter. So for those of you who've never done cables before, I hope you found it really easy to follow. And I hope that you'll now find cables less intimidating. And you can use cables on so many wonderful projects. And stay tuned because you're going to see more cable projects coming up. But I thought it would be fun to start off with the hat project and keep things short and sweet, so to speak. So if you have any questions about this tutorial or any tutorial, just make sure to pop me a comment in the comment box down below, or you can always just email me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. I am more than happy to answer any questions or help you if anything in the tutorial is slightly unclear, okay? And you can also find me on some of the socials like Facebook and Instagram at the Stitch Sessions. And come and visit me over on the website at crochetcrafty.com. We've got a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for where you get a free written pattern every month. And you can check out some of the other goings on that's happening throughout the month on that newsletter and some of our online interactive crochet classes if you're interested. In the meantime, I hope you have an amazing day. Happy crocheting. Take good care of yourselves as always. And I will see you guys in the next session. Take care.